So as we enter week 7, there's a term I want, if you've not heard of this term, and I suspect most of you have not, it's called a CRUD app. And that's really what we're building, right? So the create is what we're doing when we get the user input. We're actually creating a data set, in this case, our array of objects. We're rendering back to the page, right? So that's the R for read, not for render, but in our case, we're rendering back to the page. We haven't done the U and the D yet, the update and the delete. We will do those, I think, next week. But this term is a very common term, and part of what you take in a course sometime is just to learn some of the terminology. And this is not isolated to programming. You will hear people around tech talk about who have some kind of experience. What is a, like I'm building a CRUD app, or you need to handle the CRUD operations is the other way you could hear this. So just know that really what we're building in the carbon footprint is that. And what you will build when you get to build something, which you will do starting in week 9, is a CRUD app, but is focused on decision making. And in that vein, I'm going to have a code challenge to kind of help get some of the gears moving around making decisions this week. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of lingo for the industry. Last week we did forms, and it's always fun to do forms, I think, because it just makes it more real. It's more what you're used to. But the thing we did last week, and I probably mentioned this somewhere, but I want to bring it back here, is that what you've done with including the required attribute on the field to where when you hit submit, it says, no, that's required, is a bare minimum, right? It's form validation is really, really important. And I know I talked about this because I looked at some of the video again, and the importance that users will give us bad data. We have to validate. We have to give them guardrails around that. But what we've done is minimum, and we will do more in the coming weeks. Okay? Okay, so let's talk about our coding challenge, but on that way, let's actually look at what we're doing this week. Okay? So we're taking the user input, and instead of doing the display object, we're going to learn how to handle outputting tabular data, which you really can think of in terms of what you may already recognize as a table, right? And in JavaScript, we lean, of course, into the HTML way of doing it. So I show you what we we use the tags and elements related to creating tables. So what I first do is show you how to hard code, and then I show you how to dynamically do it. And along the way, we learn about modules. And this is such an important topic because as our code base grows, which it is now growing, okay, it is important to create modules that make it easier to find things and more logical and more organized. There's just so many reasons I could go on, but basically it makes it more manageable. And from a coding perspective, you want to isolate code so that it doesn't accidentally affect other code. And so learning this now is a really good thing, and it helps you organize your code. So for this, we'll learn to actually create the body of the table from the start here. And then for the code challenge this week. And by the way, I'm going to show you here, I have now put the solution after this, but remember, don't look at the solution until you've tried it. Now, I get how this week is a little more, and I will talk about this in the videos for this discussion, right? And what you want to do is, even if you have a solution, you need to have working code going into week 8, just like you would before. And sometimes I've been doing this in the attendance. We're going to do something a little different today, but I'm just saying here. And this is where, part of the reason I'm kind of doing some stuff in attendance now is to give students kind of some more coding experiences, because what we're doing in the code alongs is really, I want you to follow my examples. And again, there's tons of ways to do stuff. I just show you one. Okay, but I want you to have that solution code mostly in place, because what happens is if you don't, it's harder to follow the code alongs. But let's go look at actually this one here, because I spent some time today Actually thinking about, because I've reorganized a little bit this challenge, broke it into 3 challenges. It's creating a module, it's fixing the way the headings show up when you submit the form, and then the third one, clearly a little more work here. And I go over that here. So on this video, I actually hit, if you hit the start, it'll start back here because this was a previous attendance video. But I felt like, as reviewing it today, this did a little better job of going through and the approach here, because the thing is, even if you view the solution, I want you to talk about what you've learned from the solution. But I first want you to really give an attempt to this, right? So commit my attempt before I review other students' code, which is always what I'm looking for, right? Okay, and then I actually gave you the original one as well. Okay, so I just wanted you to know kind of how that works. So now I've been talking about this, but I felt like it might be a benefit here to talk about the benefits of working ahead. There are actually a good number of you doing this, which I so appreciate. And Anthony Silva is the best. He's been, he as soon as I release content, he goes and he does it and gives me feedback where maybe I've missed something. And there's been a couple other of you as well, but just there's a major benefit to working ahead. And I suspect you know what this is, right? But it's really the benefit of being able to have a review of your code and me give you feedback so that you can get all the points possible. So do that. If you do fix something after the due date, typically, unless there was some weird situation, but typically it's good to fix it after the due date, but for your grade it doesn't necessarily help, because at that point it's late and then it gets discounted for late. And even though it's been graded once, it's still late work. Okay. So the grading part, this is where you're going to get your points for this attendance, is you're going to attempt this code challenge, right? And then in your reply, oh, I should say, give us the link, because we're going to go back to that week 5 movie, array of objects. I'll put that in here as well. Right, so I want you to attempt this, right? So this code, here's your movie recommendation logic. So review the code you had in week 5 repo, and I go over mine in the solution, but don't watch my solution until you've tried. Change the for of loop that we did to a for each, and I've given you here a link to the for each. Now, when you go to MDN and you look at it, this is actually what we call a arrow function, and we're going to learn about arrow functions. It's a simpler signature for the function itself. And it, I like the for each. It does have a few more, it just takes a little more getting used to. It has what's called a callback function. You're going to get introduced to it this week. So try to see if you can implement for this code, right? For the code that you already wrote. Let me get rid of that one. For the code you already wrote, just change it. See if you can just change it over, okay? Now, add a key of watched and a value to represent the number of times this movie has been watched into the existing objects in the array. So I just gave you, like, here's the key and here's an example. Okay, so for each movie, I think I said 3. That's how many I had in mind, right? And now what you're going to do is you're going to write multiple condition logic using and or. Okay. Now, by the way, you could do both. It'd be a little more complicated, but that's not the idea. But multi-conditional, and I actually gave you a link here, and this link is and you have to scroll down to see the multi-conditional right here. If you scroll down towards the bottom, you can start to see. Right, here's the idea of how you would write in this case and here's how you might write an or. Now, when you see just a variable like this is actually what we call a truthy value. So if it's true or false, and you could look at the detail here to see that. So if you've never seen just one variable, typically they're written like this, like choice. Now, in our case, the logic was, if movie, and then I gave you some examples, right? So write some decision logic for writing a movie or watching a movie. Like, here's all my movies, give me a recommendation for tonight. And I wrote this logic. Now, you can come up with your own, but it has to have something that has 2 conditions. If movie rating is greater than 6 and the number of times a wash is less than 5, then render that to the page, meaning make that recommendation. And I just did an or just to show you if movie rating is less than 7 or, and this is where it's important to understand the and, right? So in the and, both conditions are true, have to equal themselves to run the code. And on the or, only one of the conditions has to be true in order to run it, okay? So again, you can look at the MDN, or you can, attempt this logic. Just attempt it. And if you need help, you in your reply you can say you got that, but don't jump before trying it, right? And then commit with my code, right? And nothing you need to post in the reply again. Oh, actually, no, you do. Sorry, you do need to for this one because it's in the public, and I will update that. So then here's the solution. So check it out, and this is the way I went at it. Okay? All right. I hope you enjoy this challenge. I hope this helps to start thinking about and ors, because they're going to see it in the decision-making app that's coming in week 10, I believe. All right. Talk to you later.